Hope you don't feel useless. Just something I do. It's just something I do. I'm just passing through. Hope you don't feel useless. Just something I do. It's just something I do. Ooh, I know that you ain't used to people being cruel to girls that look like you do. Maybe you could call me baby for a couple days. We could do something amazing. I'm just passing through. Hope you don't feel useless. Just something.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Pixelated Echoes. I think we're on episode 9. Is it 9
hmm
now?
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. We've had a nice wave of people join the channel past few days actually, and I cannot thank you guys enough. If you guys haven't had a chance also to see last week's episode with Randall Thor and that blue number, please go check that out. It was a fun time. We went through a lot of great topics on that episode, so be sure to check that out. But we're gonna reel it in and just have me and Fuzzy. We'll get to an announcement probably towards the end of the show. Might do it this show. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
But for now, thanks for everyone for dropping on in. And as we always start with the show, we always start the show with like what we've been playing, right? Just to kind of settle it in before we jump into some of the topics. So my life has been very busy this week. I've been planning the move. Officially I will have the house tomorrow. So that's gonna be crazy. I've been wedding planning. My sister is doing a mural for like the city of Atlanta, so I've been helping with that. But I did get a chance to game a little bit this week, which I jumped into New Vegas. And you know what I noticed, Fuzzy? You know what I noticed about New Vegas? It's I don't think I've ever played New Vegas. I've
hmm
watched others play it for hours. I would occasionally play it when I was like at friends' houses or stuff like that. But this is the first time I like spent some time with it to this level. Like I create the character, you know. His name is Alan Walker. I don't know where that came from. It was just the name I thought of. I started going through the intro mission and figuring that out. That was the first time really that I've been able to like jump into New Vegas. I beat
Yeah.
3 and I beat 4.
hmm
But New Vegas was always that one where I was like, oh yeah, of course I played that. And then when I was playing like the intro, I'm like, I don't think I've played it.
I don't remember any of this.
Yeah, I mean it's been a while, so it is possible I played a little bit more, but my memory does not remember any of this stuff. I'm like, dang. So I am loving it so far. The graphics are, they're very outdated for sure.
Yeah.
Not what I remembered. But you can tell there's definitely some updates a bit going on with the series consoles, and so that's nice. You could tell
hmm
like at least there's like good frame rate and updated
Yeah.
textures and stuff like that. So that's been nice. But your turn, buddy. So my time for the introduction. You know, my co-hosts, the racing legend, the one and only Fuzzy Belvedere. How you doing today, buddy? What have you been playing? What have you been up to?
Oh, I'm doing great. Glad to be here with you. Glad that we have everyone that we have in the chat. I haven't actually I haven't done that much racing lately. Just a little bit of Forza Horizon 5 and GT7. Those are my usual go-tos. The community unlocked the Mustang and the F-150 Raptor. So go team. As far as enough people got to do a lot of racing and was able to unlock those cars and within the 4 weeks that they offered it. So that was pretty cool. Um, Still grinding money for Gran Turismo so I can do like custom races and build like my own racing grid of like variety of cars, and I can choose the cars, put paint schemes on them, put tunes on them and everything. But the main games that I've kind of fallen into, um did this play this beta. It's a closed beta for Zoneless Zone, or yeah, Zenless Zone Zero. That's a tongue twister for you. Um, no NDA on it, but it is a Hyoverse game. So think Genshin Impact, but it's more futuristic. So it's got like this cyberpunk-esque kind of look to it, but it's not as like dark. It's more of like a brightly colored anime, like you against corrupted robots and or corrupted people kind of thing. Hack and slash, love the mechanics. There's also different characters you can unlock that have different abilities. Some of them have guns. This one girl has like a briefcase that's a gun. She'll either beat him upside the head with the bag or shoot him with a gun that's built into the bag. But that was pretty cool. It probably won't come to Xbox, but it'll definitely be on PC. It'll definitely be on mobile, and it'll of course be on PlayStation because they money had it. But outside of that, I've been playing Fallout, mainly Fallout 4. That's the one where I'm doing the mods, but I'm kind of not going full in because I'm going to wait until they do this update to see if that breaks any of the mods I've installed so far, and then go back into it a little bit more serious because I kind of have the base, the first base that you build kind of protected and everything, but I'm not going to do too much building of walls and turrets
Mm.
and all that stuff until I want to make sure I don't break it by doing the update and stuff like that. But been having fun with it. Enjoyed the TV series. Finished it. Was it almost a week ago now?
Yep.
But loved it. Gave Fallout 4 a second chance. Like originally when I played it, it didn't quite click, but it definitely clicks now after playing Starfield, and knowing those mechanics a little bit better definitely helped. Also, there was a recent announcement for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I'm not sure if many have played it. It is a I won't say a punishing RPG, but it is a slow burn in the beginning and difficult to master kind of RPG. But it's giving you this realism of like medieval sword fights and things like that, and you have to learn to read and learn to fix things, and a whole bunch of other abilities you can level up, and depending on if you lie, cheat, or steal, and people will treat you different. They'll treat you different based on the clothing you wear, or if you've washed your clothes and stuff like
Wow.
that. So, and if you get into a lot of fights, they're like, man, did somebody beat you up? Because you'll still have like cuts and bruises until you go to like the bathhouse,
That's
which
sick.
yeah, it's pretty cool, but there's ways to like clean up your act and stuff like that, and or go to the bathhouse and have fun with the ladies there type of deal. But it's a cool game, and they're expanding on that. I mean, it was a big map to begin with on the first one, and two looks like it's going to be almost double the amount of abilities that you can learn, double the size of the map. Not that that's always the greatest thing. Like, oh, it's twice the size of the world of the original world, but no, it's definitely going to add a lot more stuff to it. And now they're going to have firearms, not necessarily what we're accustomed to, but think 1400s, or
Mm.
actually, I
And
guess that would
what was
be
the name of this one?
Kingdom Come Deliverance.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's gonna
So
be sick.
it's like if chivalry was like more serious and it wasn't multiplayer, and you really had to learn how to, hack and slash or use a hatchet or a spear or things like that. But it's pretty cool. A little bit of a slow burn in the beginning, but it has a story that will probably grip you in a way that a lot of current day RPGs don't really try to dive into type of thing. But been having fun with that. But other than that, just I mean, there's tons of games out there now, and there's tons
Yeah.
more coming. Like I'm looking forward to the Kenzera of Zao or something like that. I think that
Oh yeah.
releases later this week. Got it pre-ordered on Steam so I can play it on my Steam Deck because it looks like it'll be a perfect game for that. And there's a couple other ones coming, and then you got next month we got Hellblade 2 right around the corner. So looking
Ooh.
forward to that. But
Yeah, the director, I believe the director of Zao recently went on Black Vikings stream.
yeah.
Super
Hmm.
awesome. So you guys should definitely go check that out. Like how he came up with the game and him talking about like the two powers. I think initially it was like three or four different abilities, but as they play tested it, like just having these two powers makes the game a better experience apparently. So definitely
Yeah.
go check that out. You reminded me there was this one game I just seen clips of. It was like a guy going through time, and he was like in this truck and he was driving the truck through like
Oh
a
yeah.
medieval army, as if I know I thought it was this interesting concept where you are the only one that has like modern day technology. You have like
Mhm.
guns and machine guns, and everyone else has like swords and shields and things like that. That when you were talking about Kingdom Come Deliverance, it reminded me of that. Do you
Yeah.
remember the name of that game?
No, I don't, but I do
Ooh,
remember that video because it starts off looking like Chivalry 3, I guess, and then
yeah,
all of a sudden a pickup truck is like going from Back to the Future to like medieval times and just plowing through people. And then he gets out of the truck, and it almost looks like PUBG at that point when he gets out of the truck because he's got an automatic rifle and everything. He's got his helmet on, which I mean, not like what you would wear back then, but like a Kevlar that you would wear for like modern day military as opposed to, knighthood or whatever back then. But yeah, it looked like it would be a ton of fun. And I think they even have where you have helicopters and things like
yeah,
that
yeah.
later. So yeah, that's a game that's like I'm not saying it's like turn your brain off and just blow stuff up, but it kind of looks like that would be the big fun behind that one.
Yeah, that looks sick, especially if they like add multiplayer to that. And I mean, I just love the concept. Like you have guns and everyone else has to like block your bullets and stuff with shields. I don't know. It's just the concept just seems fun to me.
Yeah.
So if anyone watches this later or anybody drops in the chat knows what game we're talking about, I know Pong posted it a couple times on his timeline, but that looks
Yeah.
super cool. But when you were talking about Fallout and like building, um, uh, like I for building mechanics. Louis, let's just said shoot, it went by. Oh, here it is. Is it
Oh,
Kingmakers?
Kingmakers. Oh, okay.
Is it
Awesome.
Kingmakers?
I think that
That
sounds
sounds
right.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds correct. Um, yes,
Yeah.
that is it. Um,
I got to wish list that.
for sure, for sure. That game looks super interesting. But yeah, when you were talking about like building for Fallout, I tend to not build in games like Fallout or Starfield until I complete everything. Like I beat the game and then it becomes more like I'm just living in the world at that point. Um that's usually how I do it. I don't tend to build in the very beginning of the game and I'm crafting it. I usually have to beat the game, do a lot of the missions, and then now I'm just living in the world. Like to role play. And I do that. I did that with GTA, of course. You beat the story mission and stuff. You try to experience a lot of the multiplayer, and then you go to like the role play servers where you can play as a cop or a robber or
Mhm.
something like that. I always find those experiences are that I mean that's the way I play. But
Yeah.
I guess Fallout 4 is when they first introduced a lot of those mechanics of like building and things like that. Then they went overboard with Fallout or with Starfield for
Yeah.
sure. All right, so we have our first topic, and people are starting to drop in the chat. Appreciate y'all for dropping on in. Gonna be a cool, chill show. But we definitely have some fiery topics we are going to get into because let me transition here. So this first topic, pull up footage. This is an article coming from Tweaktown. So I have mixed feelings on the writer, but hey, I have mixed feelings about a lot of journalists in the gaming media, right? So the headline reads Microsoft has more bestsellers on the PlayStation Store than Sony does. And I'm going to quote it because he goes into a couple of different reasons on why Microsoft has more bestsellers on the PlayStation Store than Sony does. He says, and I quote, Sony and Microsoft may be direct competitors, but sale charts also show just how mutualistic the two companies are. If nothing else, the FTC versus Microsoft trial in 2023 taught us one important lesson. PlayStation and Xbox are as cooperative as they are competitive. I don't know about that. I mean, PlayStation was like flying all over the country saying like this is bad for our business, and then towards the end, once they realized they didn't lose, they're like, or weren't gonna win, they're like, oh yeah, we signed the deal. So I don't know about that low line, but I beg to differ. He says, I'm quoting, Microsoft depends heavily on Sony's storefront to sell its games, including mega hits like Minecraft and Call of Duty, and Sony in turn welcomes Microsoft's revenue contribution. This cooperation has evolved now that Microsoft has broken first-party Xbox game exclusivity. According to the PS Store listings on the PS5 console, as of today, April 18th, 2024, Microsoft has had 7 out of the top 25 best-selling games on the PlayStation Store. This includes 2 Fallout games, Fallout 4 at 16 and Fallout 76 at 20 respectively, and it's actually showing up on the screen. Perfect timing. Call of Duty at 2, Overwatch 2 at 7, Minecraft at 19, and 2 separate games that recently broke the exclusiveness, Sea of Thieves at 12 and Grounded at 23. So quite a bit of games are up there. He continues, Sony, on the other hand, had 5 games on the best sellers list, 2 of which are not technically first-party games and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment. Helldivers 2 was developed by Arrowhead Studios and Stellar Blade by Shift Up. This is what he's saying. The 7 games associated with Microsoft are all from owned groups, even as limited integration divisions. Both ZeniMax, Bethesda, and Activision Blizzard King are owned by Microsoft. So this in turn, end quote. So this reminded me of a couple things. But if you look at the comment section of this article, it kind of does generalize what I already knew people were going to say, right? People are just so predictable nowadays on Twitter and stuff. And I wanted to read some of the comments of this article because I don't like to shy away from them all the time. I feel like hearing different perspectives to this can lead to just general clarity about like how I've been feeling about this whole situation. I've been kind of just like, companies are going to do what companies are going to do to make money. Whether you're Microsoft or Sony, if you're just on one side, if you're just on Sony's side, they're going to make some decisions you're not going to agree with. And if you're just Team Sony, it's not going to be good. If you're Team Xbox to the degree where you agree with every decision they're going to make, that's just how I see things, right? But here's a top comment. It's the only way they can get a win. Sad, really. I said this would be the narrative when they bought these studios. No shame, lol. Buy other people's work and pass it off as your own. This is what Microsoft, a cancer in the gaming space. In reality, they have one game they created on that list. LMAO. So that's the first comment. The second comment was, so you're including games that were sold before Microsoft bought them? Pretty BS, if you ask me. This is how I picture them sounding. You want to put in that article that PlayStation has outsold every Xbox generation? ? And those are the 2 top comments. But it was like I already, when I scrolled down and then it said comments, I'm like, I already kind of know what people are gonna say, and then I scroll down and it kind of confirmed it. So what I don't understand, and then we'll get to you, Fuzzy, what you think about the article and everything. What I don't understand that people start setting. Um, I guess I don't understand the rules that people start setting in order for something to be successful in their eyes. It's very like picky and choosy sometimes. If Microsoft bought a studio, owns the studio, and it does well, then people constantly question the timeline of the purchase. Like, oh well, that doesn't count because they didn't own them then. And that was like a huge narrative by Sony fans with the game Starfield. That game was just doing insanely well, constantly just topping the Steam charts, but people kept pulling the timeline question. Well, it's only doing well because it was all Bethesda and Microsoft had nothing to do with the game itself. Even though there's a ton of evidence that pointed to Starfield being a better and more polished game because of Microsoft, and they were a big part of that delay, as also because history has shown, whether you like Bethesda or not, they have a history of having buggy games on launch, right? So I guess my general point is this: if Xbox buys a studio and they own a studio, not only is that considered first party, it also means you can contribute that game to be successful underneath the Xbox umbrella. And that goes the same with Sony. If Sony buys a studio, that game's successful, that is underneath the Sony umbrella. The barrier that people set for like the timelines, and to me at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. In fact, it makes Microsoft look even better. Like if you're mad a game does extremely well and Microsoft bought them, that just means that their purchase was even more valid. So I don't even know what the point is. Like you say like, oh, they bought them, this doesn't count, whatever. They bought them and then your game is more successful on PlayStation. That means they made a really good decision. So
Yeah.
you're chastising them for making a good decision. Okay, because you didn't like when they bought them or how involved they are. So that's just one point of the conversation. The other point I wanted to talk about, Fuzzy, was Xbox making the moves to put games on other first party platforms, because not only does it prove that narrative that PlayStation fans really do want Xbox games, they just don't want to admit it, but it's really proving what I've been saying about this ordeal. Is just like Xbox has been making Trojan horse moves, which is the name of this sort of episode in a way. Most of the top sold games on PlayStation from this article are Xbox IPs.
Yeah.
So while people brag about console sales, Xbox is getting a ton of reoccurring revenue with their actual games. PlayStation is not making the same amount of bank Xbox is, well, in general, of course, but for sure not with their games. So bring it to you, Fuzz.
Mhm.
What I said for sure, but
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on the article and kind of like what do you gauge from this whole situation?
Well, there's a few things on like that chart as far as when it comes to the games that are successful on PlayStation. Like you look at something like Roblox, and that's not owned by either platform, but it's only a year old and it's already outpacing some of their, first party bangers, which it's funny, other than like MLB, which now is a multi-plat, and Destiny 2 also multi-plat. There aren't many that are in the top 10, let alone the top 20. There's ones that are like, third party exclusives or money had it exclusives, however you want to put it, that are in that top 25. But you would expect something like Spider-Man to be there, or The Last of Us, especially considering how many times they've done the remaster for The Last of Us, that it should chart. But something like Roblox comes in for a year, and it goes to show that there's more casuals or kids that play on PlayStation, or parents buying the PlayStation for their kids that are going to be uh, they're going to gravitate to those types of titles, the more casual title, as opposed to maybe the exclusives that used to get their foot.
Oh, I think your audio went out for a second.
Oh
Oh, there it
yeah,
goes.
sorry about that.
I was like, is that
Yeah,
me?
it's
All good.
No, but yeah, it's almost like a lot of people will buy the that console because their friends play Call of Duty there or something to that effect, where it's not as much their first party exclusives that really, drew them over there. But considering Microsoft making the business moves that they've made, focusing on something like ABK, where you're going to have Call of Duty, this juggernaut that's on, the top, five of almost every platform's list except for Nintendo because it wasn't available there, but it will be next generation. Um, it makes sense for them to get that revenue. And in the meantime, Sony was planning on doing what was it, 10 or 12, games as a service, and now they've kind of scaled it back to like six or four or something along those lines, where it seems like every other week or so they cancel one or there's questions of it's still in existence. But yeah, it's interesting to see that, PlayStation guys that used to make fun of some of these, Xbox titles, especially Sea of Thieves.
Yeah.
I remember the famous saying, the Kraken is lacking because, it had the tentacles above water, but below water, you couldn't see anything. And people used to poke fun at it. Oh, who wants to play that type of game? That's like a kid game and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't look like it's fun. And it outpaced Destiny 2. It outpaced Stellar Blade. It outpaced a lot of things that you wouldn't expect for that same group to say, "Oh yeah, this is the game I'm going to pre-order." And unless they're just hate pre-ordering, which I can't imagine the PlayStation guy hate pre-ordering Sea of Thieves just to make it a better selling game on PlayStation. But
Yeah.
I've
That
seen
sounds
crazier
about right.
things. No, but it's good to see Microsoft made, like you said, smart business deals, picking up these studios, and the whole thing with, first party not getting credit, blah blah blah. It's like it's either you're going to complain that they bought the studios and they cheated because they now have these games that were already in development, or you're going to complain that, well, what's taking them so long to make these games? Where's Perfect Dark? Well, that was a studio that they started from the ground up, and you see that takes a lot longer in the process. And then they had to outsource, and I think that was the intentional plan for that studio anyway. But they outsourced some of the labor as far as building the game. They had the concept and storyboards and all that done by the main studio, but that took enough of a time to the point where they could hand it off to another team to be able to carry out that vision. And people are going to complain about that being, well, where is it? Well, games take time these days. It's not like 10 years ago where 2 to 3 year turnaround was the norm. Now it's like if you can get a game, a sequel in 5 years, you consider yourself lucky. Or, you'll have the other crowd say, oh, well, that was just DLC or something like that. But yeah, it's funny to me when they always talk about the organic growth when the actual definition means you don't eventually buy a studio and whatnot. No, organic growth means you create the studio from within without any outside purchases. You take your existing team and grow that team.
Right.
But according to Sony fanboys, it's like, oh no, well, Insomniac is organic growth because they work with them. No, that's not the definition. Look it up in Webster. It's not the definition as far as business is concerned. The business definition is they would not use anything from Insomniac. They would create their own Insomniac in-house, period. Right. But that's a whole different story. But yeah, it's funny to me.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these narratives are funny to me. Like I said, like when I first seen this article, and I like could predict kind of the go-to sayings that like a lot of this stuff doesn't count, or like whenever Starfield did well, I seen constant people would say like, oh, this doesn't count because yada yada yada. And you have to consider the fact that you have a game like Final Fantasy that's restricted to being on PlayStation. Some of the previous titles, PlayStation and PC, but really most of the time just PlayStation. And them internally talking about like, hey, it's not selling as well as we thought it would. And then you have a title like Starfield, which is on PC and Xbox, but it's not on PlayStation and is selling like a lot. Just the comparison there, like they were on the top of the Steam charts like consistently, and this is kind of just proving a lot of Xbox IPs they're doing very well.
Yeah.
Say what you want about them, say Xbox is dead, Xbox is trash, but a lot of their IPs have been proven to at least last a while, and then have a lot of reoccurring players. So
Mhm.
they're it even said it somewhere in this article, I think, where it's just like they have games like Fortnite, where people just come to the game and they keep playing, they can leave, but they come back. PlayStation doesn't have a lot of those type of games, where people just can continue to be in their ecosystem. So say what you want about like when they purchase the game, that doesn't really matter to me. Like when if Sony buys today, if they buy a studio, I can't. Let's say they buy Rockstar. They can't afford Rockstar, but let's just say they buy Rockstar. GTA 6 comes out, it does well. Sure, you could have an area like, hey, it didn't count because they bought them and it was still in development and yada yada. The fact that they bought Rockstar theoretically and it does well, is this a contribute to Sony's success that they know that game is going to do well? That's how I look at it. Like, cool, they know this game's going to do well. They purchased them. That's a good business insight to who they are as a company. Now, in the console war, sure, you can use it as ammo. Like, look, they bought them at this date, but they only had 2 months of development, so Xbox had nothing to do with this game. I'm just like, okay.
But who collects the revenue at the end of the day?
Yeah,
That's all
that's
that
the
matters.
it's like, what are you really arguing if at the end of the day Xbox is making more money than PlayStation on PlayStation Store? Like, who really wins if you're doing the console war argument? Like, who really is winning in that argument? I'm just saying. And it doesn't seem like it's PlayStation, but it does go into that conversation, Fuzz, where the Trojan horse thing, which we can talk about a little bit. So
yeah,
I think our second episode, we talked about Xbox being a Trojan horse in a lot of cases. So when they announced that Sea of Thieves and Hi-Fi Rush and Pentiment, I guess, are all going to other platforms, there was a lot of conversation. What does this mean? A lot of people are saying like Xbox is dead and stuff. I never thought Xbox was dead. But in my brain, the old concept of games just being on one platform and that being the best way to do something, that idea started to leave my brain a little bit. Where the way that games and companies used to compete, in my brain, that started to die. Just because it's no longer console wars, it's more so ecosystem wars. And that is leading to my second topic, which is Helldivers 2 on Xbox. So courtesy of Fuzzy, he's been like sending me some awesome articles. And I'll put let me put the image I have here. So this comes from an article from Twisted Voxel. Quote, speaking during the latest episode of the Xbox Era podcast, co-hosts Special Nick, mentioned that there are some very early discussions ongoing regarding the possibility of Helldivers 2 being released on the Xbox Series X and S. He believes that the current PlayStation boss is a little more open to certain things, hinting at the idea of experimenting with multi-platform console releases beyond just MLB The Show titles, and Bungie's future releases. Nick clarified that this doesn't guarantee that Helldivers 2 will arrive on Xbox Series X and S. All he's heard at this point is that there are preliminary discussions going on in this regard at Sony Interactive Entertainment, The talks could end up falling to pieces and they may not come to an agreement in the end. The podcast members all agreed that Helldivers 2 is a very Xbox feeling game and that it will find success on the platform. End quote. I mean, I agree that Helldivers 2 does feel like an Xbox feeling game just because, but that's just defaulted to the fact that Sony doesn't make a lot of live service type games, or if they do, it doesn't end up it doesn't end up being very good. Just being honest there, but I do hope they do more live service type games, because I, at the end of the day, I just want all these companies to compete in different ways. I want Sony to constantly just compete and have more multiplayer type games. I was really excited about Factions. I was like, okay, this is like a step. I want more multiplayer type games, like in their single player games, like Spider-Man. So that's just another conversation, but I do want that, and I want Xbox to constantly just keep improving their ecosystem, having better DVR system, fulfill what we all love about Game Pass, and keep that going. Yeah, that's pretty much what I want from them. I want more single player experiences like Sony. That would be cool. Have some of those sprinkled in there with your other RPG stuff. So yeah, if this ends up being the case, it really turns the conversation of no more console wars, ecosystem wars. But the ecosystem wars, it further kind of defines Xbox's vision that they already set out for the future of Xbox. So just basically Xbox being a platform that has games on it rather than this is the console, you buy the console, you have to buy the game with that specific console. So bringing it to you, Fuzz, Helldivers 2 on Xbox goes into a lot of different conversations. What do you think?
I think it would be a great idea, and there was a handful of us that were saying that from the day it launched. Not knocking the PlayStation crowd, it feels like even the host for Xbox Era was saying, it feels like an Xbox game. It's that shooter, a third person shooter at that, on like an alien planet. You can, play it co-op. I mean, it's not geared to be PvP, which, that would probably be an element that would also lean more towards Xbox, the genre that seems to do the best on the platform. But having it as a PvE co-op experience where you're fighting aliens and or alien bugs or insects and robots and things like that in the name of freedom, and interplanetary wars and drop ships and now mechs and things like that, like that just makes sense. And the Xbox crowd, I think, would eat that game up, much like the PlayStation crowd ate up Sea of Thieves and got it to chart. I think it would, Helldivers 2 on Xbox would do extremely well. But it's really dependent, I guess, on the contract and the studio. I think the studio would be all for it because, hey, more money in their pocket. But as far as PlayStation, I know they're probably begrudgingly looking at it, but if they get a piece of the pie because it's their IP or they partially own the IP, I think they would be satisfied knowing that, hey, maybe if we sell an extra million or two copies, hey, that's more money in our pocket for more, investment into either the game or games as a service or, a bit of both, whatever, however you want to look at it. It's still money in their pocket at the end of the day. But, Helldivers, I played it a good bit when it first came out. So many other games have come out that I've kind of put it down, and Dragon's Dogma definitely ate up a lot of the opportunity for it. But yeah, at some point I definitely want to go back. Every now and then I log in because I did the microtransactions and put enough money in there where I could just constantly buy like some of the armors and things like that. But outside of that, it's still an awesome game. I hope those talks continue and that it actually comes through. And it's not because, oh, well, they took some of our games, I want their games. No, I already own the game on PC. I think it would just be better for that overall community. Like if they want another game to do as well as Destiny, I think this is their easiest shot right now that they've taken, more so than what Fair Games would probably be. we'll see what Concord is like when it actually comes out. And if we're being honest, looking at how well MLB The Show does on Xbox, like it's been floated out there that it's like played 6 times more on Xbox than it is on PlayStation. So
Yeah.
it is one of those things where if that helps PlayStation at the end of the day, I'm all for it. Could care less as far as having exclusives go everywhere, because I've ever since Xbox decided to do that, I've kind of been like, you know what, screw it. It's like, as long as I get access to the games, and then I can either pick to play them on the console or PC, which I'm leaning more so PC these days. It's all the better. But I'm pretty sure there's enough within the Xbox community that would support that game and make it worth Sony's while and Arrowhead's while. So fingers crossed. Hope that
So
it goes through.
so I'll pose a question to you. Do you think that, because the conversation was what would Sea of Thieves and all this games came on, it would damage the Xbox brand, but because
Mhm.
Xbox went first, do you think that the same conversation would be had for Helldivers 2? If Helldivers 2 went to Xbox, do you think that it would be damaging the Sony brand?
I think you will
Or
have a handful of people say that, but I don't think it will be as damaging. And
mm,
not that Sea of Thieves really damaged. I know it definitely probably pissed off quite a few people,
yeah.
me to some small extent, I guess included.
Yeah,
But
same. Especially Hi-Fi Rush. I was like, what the heck? But it was just more
yeah,
so the thing in me, like the competitive fanboy in me. I'm still a fanboy at the
Mhm.
end of the day, but
Yeah.
yeah, it is what it is.
No, but I think the difference being that it is a second party or a studio that's not owned by Sony, I think that it gives a little more leeway. It's already on PC, so that is another platform technically that PlayStation is moving towards or buddying up with a bit more these days, it seems. But I don't think it would damage it. It would just have a handful of those that were complaining about the PC overlay for Ghost of Tsushima. Those will be the same ones that complain about it, and the rest of the world will, just enjoy the game. And there'll more than likely be a lot of people that aren't in that console war space that are like, hey, that game that I was telling, like, I just imagine the water cooler moments where it's like, hey, remember that game I was telling you about that's not on your system? It looks like it's coming over to your system now, or you don't have to worry about building that PC to, give it a try. It looks like it might come to your system. So I think there will be more um, players that will gravitate to that game just for the fact that if they do a cross play at that point, and sure, you're going to have the knuckleheads that be like, oh, I don't want to play against PlayStation guys. I'm going to shoot them in the back every time I see them, and
Right.
vice versa. But I think you'll have a lot more people gravitate to that game because it's not PvP. Yes, friendly fire is on, but because it's not PvP, it's more PvE. You'll have a more stable community with looking for groups and having it where a lot more people just chill through that or chill and play that game and have fun about it. And you'll see the crazy antics of like just like we saw with some of the shorts or TikToks of people landing some of the hellfire on their teammates and things like that. So yeah, I think it won't damage it. There'll be talk about it, but I don't think it'll hurt anything anywhere near to what we saw with the Xbox community. Not that it there's a main difference in the communities. I just think because it's not first party, it won't be taken as seriously.
Mm,
But like you said, like the whole thing with Hi-Fi Rush and Sea of Thieves, that rubbed a few people the wrong way.
yeah.
But it was because it was first party. I think if it was something like, oh, Remedy is putting, what is it, Quantum Break on another platform or something like that,
It
I don't
wouldn't hit
think there would
as.
be as much pushback with that being an older title or something like that. But then again, it all depends. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's definitely some conversation getting with the, I guess when you put a game on another platform, does that game perform better on the new platform as opposed to your your current base, which you put as a topic. We'll definitely get into that, but let me first uh look at the comments. So Cage Fielder said 3-bit, what if Xbox bought Epic get that Fortnite dough and that Unreal Engine dough. I would love that. Maybe. I don't know. It would make sense because like they have a history together with Gears of War. A lot of the Coalition developers are probably the best developers for the Unreal Engine like out there. Like a lot of teams, and I've experienced this. A lot of teams are at Xbox do work with each other. There's engineers that jump across other teams, and that is a thing that does happen at Xbox. But the Coalition specifically, they are the masters of the Unreal Engine. So if you really want to see what the Unreal Engine can do, for sure tune in to Ninja Theory and what they are working on with Hellblade 2. But if you want to see that performance and everything else, I would definitely look at the Coalition. So if Xbox bought Epic,
That
wow,
would be awesome. But
that'd
man,
be crazy.
I could see regulatory bodies because of the engine, and then that would
Yeah.
be in the Microsoft game stack. I, I mean, in all honesty, you know what? It would probably be for the better at that point because you have somebody like the Coalition that would help work with Epic and make it so it's more streamlined for mass use.
Hmm.
It may make it a little bit easier for optimization for a lot of other studios that use UE. So I don't think it would be a bad thing. I just think at that point you'd be looking at, well, Microsoft has like two of the biggest money making IPs under their belt.
Yeah.
That's like number one and two almost everywhere, whether it be Fortnite or Call of Duty. And I think Fortnite's still up there on Nintendo. So, once Switch 2 comes out, yeah, it'll be number one and number two on every platform. So that might ruffle some feathers at that point.
Yeah, the regulatory bodies, if you think they went crazy all over Activision Blizzard, uh, hmm. like Epic would be interesting to see because they don't own a lot of games. That's not really Fortnite is like their game, right? They don't have many other games outside of Fortnite, but Fortnite alone is worth a lot. It's always on the top of different gaming charts across all platforms. Um, but the Unreal Engine is pretty much used across the board from every studio. I would say, surprisingly, this didn't make sense to me. Like PlayStation invested so much money into Epic,
Mhm.
but none of their studios use the Unreal Engine. I'm just like, okay, what was the point? What was the point of you putting?
Yeah.
Well, I still don't understand that decision. They had that demo that they showed where the
Mhm.
girls flying through the like the mountains and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, cool,
Mhm.
that's cool. And then people had articles at the time like this is only possible on the PlayStation 5. I'm like, because of the SSD. I'm like, come on, that's not true. And then later you found out, oh yeah, we just used a laptop to do that. I'm just like, wow, okay, that was interesting. But like, I don't know. I think Xbox has a lot of studios using the Unreal Engine. It would make
Mhm.
sense they combine, but we'll see. A couple other comments. The Susa says, hopefully now that Helldivers is a success, Killzone or Resistance can come back. Right
That would
underneath
be
that, you guys
nice.
are talking about me being the CEO of PlayStation. Listen, that would be my first order as the PlayStation CEO is there's too many IPs at PlayStation that are dormant. Um there's too much. There's a lot of IP that people want to see come back, but PlayStation at this point, people have expectations of PlayStation, and it's like specific types of games, and sadly that means a lot of the games that used to be known as like PlayStation IPs, they're just gone now. Like Resistance would be a good IP to come back to.
Mhm.
Who is Resistance? Who's the developers? for Resistance.
Insomniac
Yeah,
was originally, so
they were originally, right? So what are they working on now? They are the Marvel studio. So it's just like it's unfortunate. Like Marvel, yes, they're a powerful uh entity. I love Marvel. I love Spider-Man. X-Men apparently is their next title after Spider-Man and the Venom game, possibly Ratchet and
yeah.
Clank. Then X-Men's like down the line. But it just sucks because Resistance is a great franchise that you could continue to build on with, and have people like, oh, PlayStation has a first person shooter that I really like. Here is Resistance or here's Killzone. All those are gone. There's no SOCOM. There is just Last of Us and God of War. Um,
Yeah.
and they do have Ghosts of Tsushima, which is a great game, but they
Mhm.
used to just have a lot of just different IPs. And I, as the president, CEO of PlayStation, I would bring a lot of those IPs back. Jack and Daxter, just a lot of amazing IP that Sony
Yeah.
has. Hire other studios to do it. I don't know. I would
I
definitely
mean,
bring
it'd be
those back.
great for fan service. It would probably win you like, not necessarily publisher of the year, but it would definitely get a lot, it'd make a lot of people happy, both the gaming media as well as just gamers in general, because like you said, there's so many things. Like SOCOM is one that it's like a sore spot now. Like if somebody had the wherewithal to make us so calm these days. Like I keep on looking over at Ubisoft and it's like you could make Ghost Recon that, guys. Like, why don't you like
Yeah.
focus on like they should have had their multiplayer for Ghost Recon a lot sooner. Like I remember Wildlands, it was like they were taking forever to do the PvP stuff. And it's like by the time they did, it's like everybody kind of moved on. But that was almost like a perfect game to do a battle royale or even do like a
Mhm.
SOCOM, like maybe like 10 versus 10 or 25 versus 25 or something type of deal. But
Yeah,
we'll,
it's
we'll
just
see.
like I really want Sony to just take a risk outside of what people know them for, which is like that story driven. They are the kings of that. Like, awesome. Continue to do those. People love those games. I love those games for sure. But also have like your first person shooters, have your stealth genre games, have your games kind of like what's on the screen, Kina, I
Mhm.
believe, which is now on Xbox. This is Fuzzy's gameplay, by the way. Playing in this game. What are you playing this on, by the way?
Oh, I'm playing it on the PS5. It took me a while to get used to the controls again because I haven't played it in a bit. Like it's a great game.
Yeah, it looks
I'm
beautiful.
not in the platformers at the minute. Like at the time I was, and then something got me out of platformers for a bit. So I kind of put this down and then picking it up today, it's like I don't remember what any of the controls do. It's like, how do I make the little guys attack people? And it's like I didn't figure it out until like towards the tail end. I'm like, I died once. I'm like, I used to never die in this game. This game is, I won't say that it's easy, but it's like a relaxed game that you can kind of take in the visuals because it looks like a Pixar. If Pixar made a video game, this is kind of what I envision that would
Yeah.
be.
Yeah, this game's art styles is insane. I really like it. Like very
Yeah.
Pixar-y. Um, I have another topic that I do want to get through, and I'll put up the gameplay on the screen. Sea of Thieves. We did touch on Sea of Thieves and all these other games coming to other platforms, but you mentioned something, Fuzzy, in the DMs, and I do want to go through it. Because why not? We got a lot of chill conversations. We're gonna just go through
Mhm.
whatever we can think of. So, Sea of Thieves performing possibly better on the PlayStation. I have a couple different quotes, and I actually watched the video from Digital Foundry. So they basically were comparing the visuals of Sea of Thieves from the PlayStation 5 to the Series X, and then they also had the PC as well. They were saying in a lot of cases the PC actually that they didn't like the shadows as much. They just kept referring to the console version, which I thought was interesting. Is like PC is supposed to be the best, but sometimes these companies, they they figure out which platforms they want to look really good, and then sometimes PC can suffer for it randomly.
Yeah.
So they get into the conversation that they prefer the shadows on. I don't even have to really read the article. I was just watching the video. I was watching different comparisons. The article does kind of go into. Let me see if I could find that. It's like Game Rant. So I'll quote from Game Rant that another Xbox first party game looks better on the PlayStation 5. And it continues, the third of Xbox's multi-platform efforts on PlayStation 5, Sea of Thieves, reportedly boasts superior visuals on the Sony machine. A recent analysis comparing the Xbox Series X and S and PS5 versions of Sea of Thieves revealed the latter pulling ahead on the graphical front. Continuing, Sea of Thieves continues the pattern as analyst experts, Digital Foundry, have put the Xbox Series X and S and PS5 builds of the game under the microscope, with very intriguing results, mirroring the situation Hi-Fi Rush found itself in. Sea of Thieves has noticeably sharper, more detailed shadows on the PlayStation 5. This advantage is consistent whether they examine up close or over long distances, with the PlayStation 5 nearly matching the highest shadow quality preset on the PC version of the game. The PS5 also draws distant foliage detail, draw distance slightly better than the Series X, comparable to ultra settings on PC. So, I read this. I've thought about it, right? I've been pondering this, and this is something I might even ponder to the next episode. So future 3-bit, if you're listening, you probably have more of analysis than what this current 3-bit has, right? But to the present 3-bit, when I watched the video and I was looking through the analysis, and he was saying that like all these PlayStation, if I prefer the PlayStation 5's shadows over the Series X's, and I was looking at the comparison, I was like, I don't like the PS5 shadows more. Maybe that's just my eyes, but that was in a couple of the comparisons where he was like, I actually like the PS5 shadows more, and I'm looking at it like, I actually like the Series X's more. And then when I was looking at the video some more, and he was like, oh, the quality is a little bit better on the PS5, like the draw distance. This is just me just looking at it, right? I'm not taking anyone's opinion of this is now my opinion. This is just how I generally felt when I was watching the video. They show the differences with the draw distances, and I had to really squint of like what he was talking about. I really couldn't see the huge differences in a lot of cases. Now there's some where I was like, okay, I could see like here, maybe there, but that's just because in Sea of Thieves it has procedural textures in a lot of cases. So when you go on an island, there might be more grass the first time you show up on the island, then the next time you show up on the island, the grass might be in a different spot. So when they were making some comparisons, they were like, oh yeah, the PS5 looks better. And I'm just like, the grass is different. And the shadows, of course, the shadows are going to be slightly different. So that was just my honest thought on it. In general, it never sounds good when you have an Xbox Studio, you put it on, this is this result of a little bit of the Xbox tax or whatever you want to call it. When you put an Xbox game on another platform, and if it just performs better or it looks better, you're gonna get these conversations. This is the result. Like, we're still in an age where it's not common, it's not normal for a company to like all of a sudden put different games on different platforms. Like Nintendo, if Nintendo were to do that, they would be like, what the heck? You know, we could play Mario Party on the Xbox? Like, what the heck? You know, that would be crazy.
Yeah.
Just because it's not normal. But because Xbox is, they usually are the first person to do something. They usually get chastised for it, and then someone else does it and it becomes normal. So my thoughts on that was generally my thoughts. I was looking at the comparisons. I had to really squint and just be like, okay, I don't see what the heck they're talking about. And the articles were basically saying like they were really blowing it out, like, oh yeah, PlayStation is way better in performance than the Xbox. And I feel like a lot of it was taking Digital Foundry out of context, but also Digital Foundry, a lot of it was like their opinion on these shadows looking better. I'm sure they have an analysis of like the amount of pixels that goes into a shadow. Like this one actually has a little bit more higher resolution. It's the same scenario as Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush though, I don't know what the heck was happening there. Some of the shadows were just like, I guess, a little bit different style in some cases, like the gate shadow. This is
Mhm.
not stuff I'm looking at as I'm playing, but like if the article said it pretty good actually. It said like we're putting this under a microscope because you really do have to put a lot of these visual differences under a microscope because
Yeah.
there's stuff you don't really notice until you do put it under a microscope. So those are my thoughts, Fuzzy. I really am curious of what you think. Again, I don't think it's good when you have a game like let's say we have Halo, we put it on PlayStation, all of a sudden it has like higher textures and stuff like that. But just generally, just looking at the comparisons, I was just like, I don't see much of a difference. But
Yeah.
don't let me influence you. What do you like genuinely think about like the whole situation?
All right. Without taking the actual differences into account, just the optics of it, I'm torn because it's like, yeah, you're putting something somewhere else, and now people are saying it performs better or looks better or better quality shadows and whatnot. And it's like that doesn't look good in the big picture of things, but the differences kind of remind me of GTA 5 back in the day between the PS4 and the Xbox One. Oh, look, there's a whole 5 extra blades of grass. Like, okay. Um, People have been playing Sea of Thieves on Xbox and PC for like, what, 6 years, 7 years now. I don't think they complain not once about the lack of grass textures or the shadow of the trees or anything in those 5 or 6 years. Like people have been playing that game, enjoying that game all this time without ever thinking, when this goes somewhere else, I wonder if it's going to have better visuals. Like that, I don't think that was ever a thought during those 6 years. But then again, there was never the thought that that game would probably go elsewhere over those 6 years either. But all that being said, it's like the thing I remember from GTA 5, at least from Xbox One versus PS4, was that when they were making the big to do about the 900p versus 1080p and the 5 extra blades of grass, the thing that they seemed to always miss was the Xbox usually had either more NPCs or more things on screen.
Mm.
Perfect example. You can, if you still have your PS4 and your Xbox One and you have GTA 5 on both, go ahead and load it up. Go and look at the traffic. Like when you start on the highway, you'll have, I think it's 4, maybe 5 cars on the PS4, and you'll have at least 6 or more on the Xbox One. And the Xbox One was supposedly on paper less powerful. But there was something in the optimization. Maybe it was because the resolution was slightly lower that you could have more, things on screen. But it a lot of times translates into the stuff like that. Like even looking at Cyberpunk, there was this whole deal where there were more NPCs in Cyberpunk on the previous generation consoles and even on the current gen. A lot of times when you're walking through the city, there's more NPCs on the Xbox version. So while it may not get all of the pixels that the PlayStation gets, it gets something else in exchange. And it sometimes comes down to the priority on the hardware. And it seems like a lot of times the hardware with Xbox either prioritizes NPC functions or the a number of NPCs or the number of things on screen. So while the draw distance of that bush may make it so it's not appearing on the PS or on the Xbox, but it appears on the PS5, you might wind up having to fight two enemies on the Xbox as opposed to the one skeleton enemy on the PS5. So there's always going to be a bit of a trade-off. Yeah, it sucks that, you got Digital Foundry, which are famous for using the microscope for things like this, but at the end of the day, I don't think anybody that already was enjoying Sea of Thieves is really going to care. Yeah, they might be a little upset that, like I've even seen mentioned in the chat. It's like, when are the tools going to kick in, kind of thing? And it's like you would think with first party that would be a bigger priority, but it seems like whatever the plan was from the engineers to the first party studios may not have clicked completely. Now, when we see Ninja Theory's game and when we see Coalition's game, that might be a different story at that point. But
Yeah.
in current form, we don't see as much of the benefit, I guess, with the tool set, the RDNA2 tool set in the series consoles. But I think it's going to be a slow road of change to see a lot more benefit from it. But then again, we'll also see possibly the PS5 Pro that, because it will have some similarities in architecture and stuff, that maybe the devs, in effort to, cater to that PS5 Pro, which will be a small segment of the larger segment of PS5s, maybe that will also benefit the series consoles. But I don't know. I've stopped caring about the shadows and the better, stuff, because
It
a
has
lot.
2 extra pixels, Fuzzy. Like 2. You gotta.
Yeah, and the thing is, there's usually a patch, because I hate to point out the human element in it. Sometimes it's human error. I mean, not saying that they made an error to make it better there, but it's like, oh yeah, we forgot to push the update to Xbox. So, let your voice be heard. If it, rubs you a certain way, by all means, speak on it to remind those devs maybe there is a patch they forgot to push
For sure.
to the series consoles that, gives you that same, visual, resolution and shadows and everything. Because a lot of times I've noticed from just the first party titles I enjoy playing, like they're like, not knocking playground games, but I've noticed over the years when it comes to their updates, they're not always consistent on their patches. Like the patch would fix the stuff that they were trying to fix, but then there would be some old code in there that would bring back old bugs that should have been eliminated from the code, type of thing, from before, because they were fixing a previous patch. But it looks like they haven't had that problem in like a year or two, but there was a time where it was like the early launch days. It's like, wait, you just fixed this bug, now it's back, but you fixed the other bug, and then when you go to fix the other bug, then that comes back. And yeah, it was like a endless cycle. So there's there's human element in it to some extent as well. But yeah, it doesn't look good when it's better on the runs better on the competition. But as long as you're enjoying the game, don't let that prevent you from continuing to enjoy the game. But do make your voice heard, so that way, if there is a patch that they forgot to push, maybe they hit the send button and get that thing uploaded into the server, so that way it can update the the Xbox version. Because I think Deathloop was one of those where it actually ran better on the Xbox until they did that FSR 2 something update. Then it slowed it down, and then they did another patch that fixed it back up. But I think from because I have it on both, because I didn't want to wait. I bought it on my PS5. It actually ran better on the Series X that I have. So but guess what? Digital Foundry didn't do anything as far as a comparison on that. So
Yeah,
where's that comparison? Digital Foundry.
there's a lot of games that have a way higher resolution on the Series X, but maybe the frame rate dips a little bit, and then usually they don't point that out. They're just pointing like, look, the frame rate is down on the Series X, but the PS5, it has consistent 60, even though the resolution is completely different. So I see that quite a bit.
Capcom
which is why I don't
games, they're
always.
famous. I mean, but then again, Capcom games tend to run better on the series consoles. So
For sure. And I do want to, first off, Web Dave coming in with a ton of his viewers. Listen, dude. I think this is the second time. The first time he tried to do this, but I was like, I don't know how to get your viewers in here. I'm new to you. I'm not even new to YouTube. I've been doing YouTube since I was like 10, but that's a new feature. So I was like, I don't know how to. You're gonna have to show me. And he actually messaged me like, "This is how you do it," and he sent me a video. I was like, "Oh, okay." This is like it's like a button. That I was like, oh, "Okay, that's where it is." So, Web Dave, appreciate you for dropping on. Not only dropping on by, but dropping your Web Dave army up in here. So, thank you
Thank you, Web
guys
Dave.
for checking us out. And be sure to hit that sub button. Helps us grow. But Web Dave, appreciate you, man. We got to get you on the show at some point. But yes, Fuzzy, this topic, I'm sure future 3-bit has a lot of different thoughts on it, but my current thought is Digital Foundry, they put what they want to under the microscope, and then they kind of pick and choose when they want to do these comparisons and stuff. They usually do it for controversy stuff. It seems that way. But I understand that a lot of people probably want to see how Sea of Thieves performs on PlayStation and then compare and stuff. I get that. And it's going to be a constant thing when Xbox starts putting other games on PlayStation that people are going to be like, look, it has 5% better pixels on the PlayStation. Ooh. You know, that's going to be a constant thing. And I think what Xbox has to do to mitigate that, do the best you can on Xbox, do the best you can on PlayStation. And Xbox does have a lot of power within its box that I still feel like haven't been fully utilized to its full potential. So, well, that's a whole other conversation. But I do feel like these developers need to do some work. Let me look at some of the chat. This Tusa says shots fired at the Foundry. Yes, I will always fire shots at Digital Foundry. I respect what they do, but also they cause a lot of drama in their community just naturally, just for what they do. Ryu Hart says, I want Digital Foundry comparison of Helldivers 2 when it comes to Xbox. You know, yeah. I would love to see that. I have a feeling they'll skip that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing about Helldivers 2, and keep in mind, I love the game, but it was one of those things where I remember so many people giving Starfield a bad time about the eyes of the NPCs and things like that. And the first thing I see when I look at the NPCs on that, yes, it's a smaller team. I get that. But it's like, wait a minute. These were the same people that were saying Starfield NPCs don't look good. And I'm like, have they seen the ones for Helldivers yet? But yeah, it's they won't do a comparison. I hope they do, but they won't.
Yeah. Xbox techs be strong sometimes. Then we got Susa also saying it's the CMA's fault. Games can't look better on Xbox or it's a monopoly.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Parity clauses.
yeah, they actually talked about that at the FTC versus Xbox, where they talked about parity, and we've seen for the first time, because for years we wouldn't know what went into these contracts. But some contract leaked on Sony's side where they talked about like games have parity clauses, and then from what I remember, the parity is like feature clauses, so it couldn't have a game mode or anything like that. But I feel like it also, I'm not clarifying this, but I feel like it did have some performance things in there as well, where it kind of talked about like a game can have drastically better performance, but I could be wrong. But I think that this goes into case like maybe it'll make a game look really bad. Like if you were to use the full power of like an Xbox and then you have like 4K 120, for example, and then it just performs like 30 FPS. I don't think PlayStation would allow that on the, just,
Yeah.
I just can't see that happening. So I'm sure they have some clauses to performance as well. uh, is not just feature. I don't think. Nate Dogg says Phil would have made it exclusive if it wasn't for the CMA. The original contract was for years. Was he talking about Call of Duty?
Yeah, like I
What
kind of
was he
wonder
talking about?
about that. I think he is talking about Call of Duty, but like I think early on when they talked about ABK, I think we all knew that, Warzone would still be multi-plat, but there was kind of like this rumbling that, well, maybe when they take Call of Duty and do it every other year, or at least the campaign aspect, maybe they still do a multiplayer aspect every, year that, blends in with Warzone kind of thing. But as far as the campaign, maybe that becomes the exclusive. And then
Mm.
that way you can draw people over to Xbox and like, hey, you want the story behind, the multiplayer, you have to get it on Xbox, but you can still play the multiplayer if that's all you want. And I'm pretty sure there would be some people who just stick with the multiplayer and others they would stick with the campaign. But maybe in 10 years, I mean, the way things are moving, I mean, there might not be exclusives in any regard other than maybe the campaign becomes a Game Pass exclusive or something where you'd have to be subscribed to Game Pass to be able to get the campaign. And they could at least do that in the 10 or after the 10 years, but
Mm.
I don't know if that's the move they want to make or not, but we'll see.
I don't know. He says Phil would have made it exclusive if it wasn't for the CMA. I
I mean,
think
look what he did
they.
with ZeniMax. A lot of that stuff was, well, it started as exclusive, and I think,
Mhm.
some higher ups probably told him, yeah, that we can't do that no more.
Yeah, yeah. That's it. I think there might be some truth to that. But I also think there's certain games like Minecraft, for example, where they definitely consider those being like a multi-platform type game. Like Minecraft and Call of Duty, I put in the same bubble. Now everything else, I was considering like, ooh, I don't know. I don't know if the next Overwatch will be on PlayStation. I don't know about these other games. With their current mentality, it's I still think they're gonna have a lot of exclusives. That's a lot of the thing that people don't realize. Like they think that, oh yeah, because of Hi-Fi Rush and Sea of Thieves, all games, the new Halo, all this is going on PlayStation. No. Exclusives is still important to their business model because the business model that they eventually want to go to, which is just like having games everywhere, you can play Game Pass on your PlayStation and stuff, it doesn't exist yet. Until they get to that model, which is basically this open idea, this open platform that they have in mind where you could play Sea of Thieves on PlayStation, you could play it on Switch or Xbox, or that idea that they have as a company doesn't really exist yet. Until it does, and they're setting up the stones for it, but until it does, exclusives are still important to their business model. So you will still have exclusives. Wow, I know. Right? Whoa. You're still gonna have exclusives on the Xbox. Now how long? It really dictates how the market is reacting. We're starting to see PlayStation react uh well, possibly with these rumors. Helldivers 2. We've seen comments from the CEO of Sony saying like we shouldn't really worry about console sales. We need to start worrying about reoccurring revenue into our games. This is the CEO of Sony PlayStation saying this, and then you have like Sony fans saying like, "No, worry about console sales," but the CEO saying like, "Don't worry about console sales." You know, so when the market starts dictating, like when PlayStation starts putting more games on PC, it becomes more normalized. That's when you will see less exclusives from Xbox. Until then, they're going to probably have these test cases, see how well Sea of Thieves is doing. Like they're basically, I'm sure, just like looking at the numbers. Like, okay, it's doing this well. This type of game is doing this well. Pentiment, I think, barely had any sales. Smaller
Yeah.
games, okay, probably not going to do well. Okay, no more small games like Pentiment on PlayStation like this. What about Sea of Thieves? Sea of Thieves doing well. Hi-Fi Rush, how's that doing? They are looking at these type of games, how they're performing on other consoles without fully dipping in. They're just kind of just like, oh, they're just seeing. They're number people. They're
Mm.
numbers people. Um, so for now, Xbox is still going to do exclusives until the market dictates otherwise. That's what
Yeah.
I think. Do you agree with that, Fuzz, or
Yeah.
you have other?
Well, I think the big thing is if rumors are true of this like hybrid where it's like part console, part PC, and I think the next console is basically a PC and console clothing kind of thing where your current generation games and earlier will be emulated, especially if they go with the ARM chipset, and then it'll be able to, play everything from the Windows Store as well as anything from Steam or Epic and stuff like that. So I think exclusives, at least for the moment, for console exclusives, will still remain. But in 10 years, when everything is like a Steam store or Xbox store or PlayStation store, and the hardware is less of the concern, um, yeah, I think that's when exclusive won't necessarily matter as much because then you'll have those other brands as publishers on there. I mean, Steam will be still the only one that's a store only. I mean,
Yeah.
other than their Steam Deck, which will basically you can put the other stores on there if you want. So if um, Xbox ever makes a separate PC store, well, actually, you can kind of put their Windows store on there, and you can put Game Pass on there. But if PlayStation does something similar, yeah, you'll be able to do that as well. I mean, you can already do remote play for PlayStation on a Steam Deck. So, but
Oh yeah,
yeah.
true, true. People are continuing in chat. You guys are having awesome conversation in chat. Thank you guys for dropping in. Susa says, so knowing what we know now, are you expecting Blade to be multi-platform? No. But I'm also not going to comment too much on Blade because I'm starting to know stuff about Blade, and I don't want to be that insider. Starting to know some things about Blade, but no, I don't think it'll be multi-platform. Nate Dogg says, I still think that they have ABK exclusives. They've been very guarded in saying everything will be multi-plat when they testify in court. Yes. This is why, like, I was like, what was the point? Like, this was when people was really angry at Xbox when they were announcing other games that come to other platforms. I was like, what was the point of the whole FTC case if they were just making everything multi-plat, or certain statements that they made where they never said that all games going to all platforms for sure, like every game from Bethesda, this is going to other platforms. And I think the reason why they did that is just because it gives them a little bit of room. I'm sure a lot of the games they have out of ABK Blizzard are going into other platforms, but I'm sure they also have some exclusives planned. They really can just decide. I mean, what's really cool about Xbox's current vision and how many studios they own, they can really just do whatever the heck they want. Like, they have 30 something studios. Before, they really had to rely on, like, hey, Halo, Gears, and Forza, that's all we really have. We really have to make sure that these games are really good, that it comes out at a good time, and they really had to pump those 3 games up, Halo, Gears, Forza, because that's all they had. Now it's very overwhelming to even just think about all the games they have in their pipeline. So with that comes a very strategic thing they can do is deciding when to put exclusives in their pipeline or when to make it multi-platform. Call of Duty is multi-platform. They are on the stand in constant if you go to the FTC trial, the CMA trial, they had to say Call of Duty was multi-platform. Now even Phil had to be like, yes, it's going to PlayStation, because they're like, oh, look, they're using multi-platform like loosely. He's like, no, it's going to PlayStation. Now, while they were arguing all that, in the back of their hand, they're like, look at Call of Duty, woo, while they hid all of the other IP they have behind their back, which was the smartest thing in my eyes to do. While everyone is complaining about Call of Duty, like, ooh, look, Call of Duty, ooh, worry about this, ooh. They have like World of Warcraft in the back, just sitting there. They have Candy Crush. They have um, Overwatch, Diablo,
Yeah.
the Tony Hawk series. They have a bunch of licensed games like Transformers, all
Yeah.
just sitting there in the back while people worry about just the Call of Duty, right? So that those are the games they can make exclusive if they want. But it really just depends on, does it fit their plan. They can make most ABK Blizzard games multi-plat. I could see that happening. Every game that comes out of ABK, maybe they just treat it as like a separate studio, like this, you're the Minecraft type team. You just make us money. And then we'll use that money to put into other games. Maybe Bethesda. Like maybe they have a chart, this internal chart, where ABK games, this money goes into Bethesda. Bethesda keeps making the single player amazing experiences. That money goes back into ABK. I'm sure they have. I am sure they have had these conversations.
Yeah.
And we'll see. But my whole thing is they will definitely still have exclusives.
Yeah.
For sure. All
Yeah,
right.
they're still going to want to have something that draws you to the ecosystem. So
Yep.
even if it winds up being like a timed thing, at worst case, I still think they're going to continue with certain things are always going to be only on that box and or PC and not, a PlayStation or a Switch kind of thing. There will be at least a handful of things that they'll keep close to the heart or close to the chest, I should say, as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, and that's what probably, again, the four something games that they put on other platforms, that was like a test for them in a lot of scenarios of whether or not it's worth it to put games on other platforms. What is the media reception to that? Is it bad? Is it good? What are the actual numbers? You have PlayStation games where, like, oh, PlayStation is the best or something, but are they actually selling? In a lot of cases, it's like they're buffing up their numbers and making up new data sets for a lot of these games. Like, I forgot what for Spider-Man 2, what they say. It's like, this is the most sold game, or this is the most we did in a shorter time span or something. They just start making up statistics to buff it up. But is it selling how it's supposed to is the real question. And Xbox has a lot of games like Minecraft where it's at the top of the charts this constantly. So I'm sure they're looking at those numbers and being like, hey, these numbers aren't worth it, or maybe it is worth it. So I'm sure they're figuring stuff like that out. And
Yeah.
with them owning that many studios, we'll see. We'll see what they do. Maybe Raven has something smaller in the works. I definitely think that Infinity Ward MMO would be multi-plat because it seems like a lot of good conversation in chat for sure. So we got one more topic, and that is the Elder Scrolls. So this is also courtesy of Fuzzy. He basically came up with most of these topics today. Shout out to you. So this kind of just goes into Elder Scrolls, and I love talking about Bethesda and what they're planning and stuff. So he says this. He is responding to an interviewer. First, the interviewer says, Todd, I want to switch gears a little bit and ask more about the games. We obviously know that Fallout 5 is in the works, but you have said in the past that the plan is Elder Scrolls, the next Elder Scrolls iteration, and then Fallout 5. Is that still the plan, or is there any chance that could change based on the interest from the show? And then Todd Howard responds, I'm going to avoid putting dates on anything. He says, I've learned that the hard way. So obviously our focus as far as new development right now is Elder Scrolls. But that doesn't mean that we're not making plans for other things. We're still doing a lot of work, obviously, on the Fallout 76 game, and we see the community. So many people going into that game and kind of rediscovering it, and just so happy with where that game is at. It really does, and I mean, this has one of the best communities in all of gaming. Surprisingly, it's a very, very nice apocalypse, he says. And we're doing a lot of Starfield work as well. So we have some really good updates that are going to get announced soon for that game. So a lot going on here, end quote. So yeah, I think this is a good quote that you got, Fuzzy, just because it kind of goes into where Bethesda is at as a studio.
Yeah.
A lot of people we talked about on the last episode with Rand Outdoor, shout out, where we're like, where's the next Fallout game to combat with the show and stuff. So right now it seems like they are focused on what they have right now and building those communities up even further. You said you were building up Starfield, so you see Starfield on the screen, shout out. We're building up Starfield, we're building up 76, and we're just gonna increase those communities further and further. And that is the best way to do live service games. You know how many times Sony has had a live service game and then they just give up? It's like, oh, it's not successful, we're done. But not just Sony, right? But a lot of studios that if they don't see that success like immediately, they're like, oh well, it wasn't successful, let me just shut down the servers. Unfortunately, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
And in order for you to have a successful game, you kind of have to keep going. Like even if those numbers aren't what you expect or what have you, look at the reception for Fallout 76 when it came out. There was a lot of deserved, by the way, a lot of deserved criticism for that game in terms of the microtransactions, how buggy it was, you not being able to access a lot, them locking things off, like. But what did they do for years and years? They just kept adding to it, adding more missions, improving the performance. Same thing with Halo. This sort of turnaround scenario where you keep working on a live service game until it's in the place where you jump into it and it's just like an incredible experience. Division 2, another really good example of that. So Fuzzy, this is a topic you brought up. What do you think about what Todd Howard says, the future of Bethesda? What do you think, bud?
I like what he's given us as far as there's some carrots on the stick for us for coming in June, but I really like kind of like what the blue number it said from the last episode, where they really need to look at making smaller teams in the bigger Bethesda camp kind of thing. Like if it means that a majority of your team is focused on Elder Scrolls 6, which it seems like that's the case with the exception of like the handful that, well, I wouldn't say handful, but the team that's still doing the DLC for Starfield, as well as a lot of like quality of life updates and things that they kind of hinted to. There needs to be another smaller section where it's like, all right, you're going to be the Fallout starter group, where you get the storyboard stuff together. You meet with Todd once a week or once a month or whatever. Just keep them in touch with where you guys are as far as, at least the groundwork leading up to the next Fallout. Because it's great that they have, the Microsoft backing as far as for finances and stuff now. But I think they could probably use more of that to expand those teams, because it is a harder time today than it was, when Fallout 4 came out. Like in 2015, games were like, you would almost question if a game took 5 years to come out at that point, what's going on kind of thing. Now it's like, you don't expect to hear anything on a game, within 5 years to some extent.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a change in times, but knowing that he's working on, Starfield still, or has a team working on Starfield, knowing that there's a lot of focus on continuing, supporting and content and updates for Fallout 76 is great. Um, and they're even doing that update, next gen update for Fallout 4, which is awesome. But we still need a team, or maybe those teams that are working on that content can, split time to Fallout 5 stuff, or at least the preliminary stuff, and then continue having his main part of the team finish off or wrap up as much as they can on Fallout 6 before they go to all hands on deck to get that out the door kind of deal. But well, not Fallout 6, but Elder Scrolls 6
Right.
to get that out the door, hopefully in 2026. I joke about all the sixes for 26. I mean, you probably have Grand Theft Auto 6, Elder Scrolls 6, Gears 6, and one that I'm looking forward to, hopefully in Japan, Forza Horizon 6. So yeah, 26 will be the year of sixes, and hopefully Elder Scrolls 6 can possibly make that timeline, but no rush if it doesn't.
Yeah, I do hope Nate Nate has put in chat, like, go 3 bit, go into insider mode for a second. Is Microsoft in talks with Bethesda and Obsidian for Obsidian to work? Listen, I don't know everything, right? I do know some things. But I don't want to be known for being an insider. Even if I do know things, and I don't want people to start clipping like 3-bit said this, and then it's like in an article somewhere, like, confirmed 3-bit said yada yada. So what I hope is that they are working on it. Just because we know, like, Obsidian is working on a lot right now, and I've heard I can confirm what I can confirm is what Grub has said. I've also heard those things of basically they were in talks, but that's all I will confirm. I will confirm what Jet Grub was saying, is that I heard the same thing that he's heard. But yeah, I don't want to be known for basically like, oh, he 3-bit at this and he's confirmed, and then you get the like, no, I'm not doing that. I am still a developer in the industry. I want to continue to be a developer in the industry. And what does suck, what I will say, Nate, is I am a little bit annoyed and sad that the industry is this secretive. That I will say. Like, the gaming industry shouldn't be that secretive to the point where, I don't know, to the point that it is compared to other industries. Like, I feel like it does have this sort of like I don't
Almost
know.
like the government with classified documents. It's like,
Yeah.
we could tell you, but we'd have to kill you at the end. It's like, wait,
Like,
what?
everything I say, I feel like there's a sniper on me all the time, and for a good reason. So, like, it does suck that the gaming industry is that way, but maybe that's why there's so many YouTubers out there where they have these rumors and they're like, oh, I heard this from this man and this man, and that's like a thing. That's not my thing. I don't make that a point in any of our channels that, like, oh, I heard from this man that this is coming, and you're not gonna hear me talk about. I'm just gonna generally talk about it, or if someone already brought it up, I'll be like, oh yeah, I heard that too. I might occasionally drop some hits if I know I'm never working with that developer or something again. But I do sign NDAs, so there's also a sniper on me in everything I say in regarding to Xbox. But if I hear something about, like, PlayStation, hey, I'm gonna say it. maybe I don't know. But I did work for Xbox. I worked with a lot of those studios, and I'm friends with a lot of people at Obsidian, and Bethesda. I'm friends with a lot of those developers even today. So that's all I'll say. Um, but yeah. In terms of insider information, you guys won't see me dive too much into that because I don't know. I don't like that side.
Yeah.
Cyber type. Flip side, we as a community don't need to know every single detail regarding a game's development. Yeah, that too. A lot of things change in development. I've seen a switch of a dime where they'll be working on a feature for a game for like years, and then all of a sudden be like, this doesn't work anymore. But then people get the old news of what it used to be, and it's no longer relevant. So game development, to me, I want to know everything just because I'm a nerd and I love the game development industry. Like I just like to know things. But that's basically where it ends. Like I like to know it. Like, okay, cool. Or if it's not relevant, if it's relevant, doesn't matter. But to what you were saying, Fuzzy, I do hope with Fallout that they are working on one. I do hope that they start allowing maybe other studios into their world. I do love Bethesda's formula. Maybe what they could do is coach teams into their DNA because Bethesda, their studio is very strong in terms of like the people who worked on Starfield are the same team that worked on like all these other Bethesda games, and it's like a strong core team there that they believe in that Bethesda formula. And there's no other game that's doing the Bethesda formula to that degree where you could talk to all these different NPCs, you leave an item on a planet, you can leave the planet, come back, it's still there. That Bethesda DNA is very strong. So if I were to let another team in and into my universe, make sure you educate them and give them the Bible. That's we actually have series Bibles that we give out at different development studios. Like this is this game's history, this is previous games, make sure you play it. Give them the roadmap. There's a lot of cool developers that I'm sure that could do a great job. But Obsidian, hey, they already proved it with New Vegas. So I'm sure they could do a killer job on another one. While the Bethesda team in this interview, Todd Howard's is talking about like, hey, we're right now we're just building up the things that we have. I won't say anything about that, but they're building up the stuff that we have, and then that's our goal for right now. But while you're doing that, other teams could definitely handle some of those franchises. All right, Fuzz, we reached the end. Unless there's anything you thought about or wanna jump into.
No, I think we're good. It was a wide variety of things on, these different platforms and how they're evolving. I think we're good.
Yeah. Good conversations today. We had like almost 100 people jump in to our conversations. Shout out to Web Dave again for dropping his army on by, and all love and to everybody who's been a part of our episodes since day one. Our channel has been growing, so I really appreciate you guys, and me and Fuzzy love to have these conversations. And we are gonna have a special show. So I was debating on whether or not to announce this, but I'm gonna do it. So on Tuesday, that it will be the next Tuesday, I believe the 30th, April 30th, we will be having 2 challengers entering the Pixelated Kingdom. So it will be Cognito, and it will also be Pong Soul will be joining us. So that's going to be a fire show. So if you guys enjoyed this show, you enjoyed the last show we had with those guests, be sure to tune in. It is not on a Sunday, so that's why I'm announcing it now. It won't be on a Sunday. That will be a Tuesday episode. It'll be at the same time, 8:30. So if you want to see Cog, join us, and also Pong Soul. Tune in. We might even have a another challenger. We'll see. You know, we'll see. Maybe we'll keep that one as a surprise. If he ends up coming in. So Fuzz, get us out of here. Tell us where people could find you, and tell us what you got going on.
Oh, as always, love doing these on Sundays. Always a pleasure being here with you, 3-bit. Thanks to everybody in the chat for joining us tonight. Love having conversations, and I try to answer as many questions as I can. Sorry if I've missed any questions or responses, but greatly appreciate you guys taking the time to check us out. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. We truly appreciate it. For those that want to hear my rambles and rants or see me do some messy stuff on social media, just follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter at fuzzy_Belvedere. You can also find me this Monday afternoon on Xbox Lunch Break Special. I don't think there's going to be an FSP Monday night.
Yeah, I don't know. I actually haven't asked. Man.
Yeah, we'll keep you posted if there's an FSP, but hope you guys will join us here this next Tuesday for our special guests and things that we'll have for a special episode. And then you can also find me on Breakfast with Boom on Double Barrel Gaming at 10 a.m. Friday morning. And then Xbox Ultimate should be back in effect at 10 p.m. Friday night. Shop Podcasts on PTK Blam's channel at 9 o'clock on Saturday. And then right back here for, well, wait, if we do a Tuesday, are we doing the following Sunday or no?
Yeah, No, we'll probably just do that Tuesday show, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
But,
so do check it out. Thanks, Fuzz.
no
Was there anything else?
No. I'm
Okay,
good.
okay. Yeah, Fuzz is on he's on a mission with all of those shows. Those are all amazing shows, so be sure to check those out. I usually find myself just like listening to it as I'm working or something like that. But yeah, a lot of good conversations, a lot of great people. Boom, for sure. I will always give credit to Boom just because when I entered in this community with only like 2 followers, which I believe one was my sister and one was me. He was like, yeah, come on by the show, which just goes to show you like it doesn't matter how many followers or something you have. If you bring good energy, good conversation, he really respects that. So I will always give credit to Boom. 3 years ago we've been podcasting. Everybody in the Fun Spec family, I think we've been podcasting around 3 something years now. So starting this pixelated journey, it's been really fun for me, and I'm sure for Fuzzy as well. So we always want to make sure we thank you guys for always dropping on by. If you guys agreed with us or not, if you're like 3-bit, you're trifling, you said this thing I don't agree with, you were trash, you were saying this and I looked it up and you were wrong, put it in the comment section. Let's talk about it. Let's have those conversations. We'll bring it up in the next episode. Like, hey, maybe I was wrong about something, but I always appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for coming on by. We'll see you guys on the next episode of Pixelated Echoes. Bye, y'all.